Hello everybody, and welcome all newcomers. Today, on our newest episode of Empire News Live, we are going to be talking about some very special things. Just because I didn't mention it in the beginning, my name is Emperor AP. This is Empire News Live, and we have some exciting stuff to get into, so I'm going to jump right into it. First off, I know I have been gone for a little bit. I've been trying to do the last final video of our economics series, which a few of you have kept up with and have watched, and I really appreciate that. But this third and final one will be some exciting news for what we have been up to. If you'll give me just 1 second. This has been some pretty exciting stuff that we've been up to, and I want to essentially in that one explain how you go about founding businesses and doing things like that to get your economy off the ground. But that's not what this video is about. That is just to explain essentially what we're trying to do for anybody interested in that and how that's going, the progress on that last final video. Going beyond that, we have some really exciting news. We are talking about how tomorrow we will be having an interview with Marcus Ruiz Evans, who started and founded Yes California, the initiative trying to get California to secede from the United States and become its own nation. Now, this is a really exciting thing for us, so we are going to be creating a whole new host of video designed specifically for that purpose. This is going to be our first national, international sort of celebrity to come on the show. So for something like that, for such a big interview, we're going to create a special category for it called our VIP Spotlight. And what those videos will pertain to is essentially us interviewing somebody, celebrity, someone who's doing something important and relevant in the news, not even necessarily a celebrity, but someone who is doing something interesting and pertaining to sort of what we talk about on the channel, and telling what it is they're doing, letting them explain their side, what they're interested in, how they're developing their plans, and what it means to them to be doing what they're doing. So it'll give you an insight on them specifically, and then as well it will allow us to ask them questions and to truly get an understanding from an Aeternian perspective, from our own interest and our own understanding of the situation, what it is that they do. So that's going to be a really interesting thing. I want to talk a lot more about that because actually he contacted me after our last video talking about that, right before I left for vacation, or for our little 4 or 5 day break. I know a lot of you saw it. It's one of our more viewed videos on the channel. I just did a real quick live discussion of the Calexit movement and my thoughts on that, and sort of the difference, in my opinion, between a secessionist movement and a micronational movement, and how those two things work together, what the differences are, what the similarities are, and ultimately what it is that people are trying to strive for in both of these things. The interest with that has ultimately become that it sparked a little bit of controversy, and we ended up getting the real Marcus Ruiz Evans, the founder of the founder of the Calexit movement and of the organization Yes California, to join us and to contact us about being interviewed. He wants to be on the show. He wants to be able to explain his piece. So we're happy to have him, and I'm excited to see how that's going to progress. What we're probably going to do for that, as I talked to Marcus about, is we are going to pre-record that. So we're going to have his interview, our questions, and everything set up beforehand. That way, whenever we get into actually showing it to you all, one, there is a little bit more of a stylized version to it. It's a little bit higher quality, so that hopefully we can reach a larger audience, and to help him spread his message as well. So we want to be respectful. We want to make sure that we do everything as best we can to accommodate the situation for him and for this interview, to make sure that everything goes right that it can. Going beyond that, personally, we want to make sure that for you all, it's something that is reliable. If we were to do a live video, like I'd like to do initially, where you can all feel free to ask questions while the interview is going on, the difficulty becomes that we can't have a reliable connection. As you've seen in our live videos before, I'm surprised this one's been handling so well, but in a lot of our live videos, we have seen a lot of lag, a lot of delays, a lot of difficulty with connection issues over the internet. So to make sure that that doesn't happen while we're trying to do a Google Hangout or a FaceTime or something like that with Mr. Evans, we want to make sure that we have everything lined up so that the connection isn't glitchy on an interview and it isn't glitchy on a stream to you all. So that being said, what I'd really like to ask of you all in this video is to please let me know any questions or any comments you have for Mr. Evans for our interview, because I'd be happy to ask them, and I'm interested to hear what you all think about this position and about what I should be asking him, how this conversation should go. I have some things in my mind already that I want to talk to him about, and that I want to get an understanding of his movement and his ideas for the future for his movement, just in how that develops. But as well, if there's any specific questions that you all have, I'm happy to hear them, and I want to know because it helps to round out what my interview is going to be like and how those questions are going to be asked, to give the most answers for the most people, to really figure out what people want to know about his movement, and hopefully to give him the opportunity to explain in more detail parts of his movement that may not be fully understood. So with all that, I'm really interested to have him on the show, and I'm excited for that opportunity. As well, because I have left you guys for so long with a break and with sort of a pause in videos, because I like to keep ramping things up. We are at 59 subscribers, which I am super happy about. I want to see it get to 60. We are one away, so if you know anybody that would be interested in this content, please tell them to subscribe. Please share it with your friends. Please like, please comment, please get this out there as much as you can, because it means a lot. Every time we can grow the channel, every time we get a subscriber, we are able to do more and more. So it just means a lot to have you all there. Enough of that sort of self-promotion though. I want to get back into the topic. Dealing with something like this, talking to Mr. Evans and going into a connection with a group like this is really interesting, because whether the interview and the conversation becomes more about focusing on these specific topics and trying to get those questions answered, regardless, I'd like to build a little bit of a relationship. I'd like to be able to understand his points and where he's coming from, and hopefully be able to have him on more than once. Because the more that we can get into that working relationship, the more that we can develop a rapport. Hopefully that'll mean more interesting content to come. Hopefully that'll mean more ability to understand an insight of exactly what he's trying to do and how those projections are going to work out in the future with his group, as well as how those may relate to the future of the Empire of Aeternia and what we're trying to do, and how those two things have their differences and similarities, whether it's for more debate issues, whether we would have him on potentially to do things like to talk about topics if he's available, to have him give his insight on different things like that. We want to see how far this can go, and ultimately to have a connection in another part of the country. It's a very exciting opportunity. Going beyond that, there's some interesting things that I want to talk about, because I have been hyping up in our economic series. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out. As well, I'm going to just quickly say, for that Marcus Ruiz Evans interview, I'm going to try, once that ends up being posted and going live, I'm going to try to go back to this video and post the link in the comments. It should be a few days before that gets fully uploaded and finished and ready to go, but I'm going to try my best to get that out very soon. Like I said, it will have to be edited. It won't be a live thing, so there will be a little extra time put in for editing, but we're going to try and get that out quick as we can. I'm going to try and put that link down in the description once this is an older video and once that has gone up. And also I want to add relatively quickly, hopefully today or tomorrow, the link to our old Calexit talk, where in fact we first got a comment from him reaching out. So that's all going to be exciting. I'm excited for the interview, but jumping back to the topic I was talking about earlier, I got a little scatterbrain there for a second. In our economic talks, if you haven't seen the last two videos, I definitely suggest you check it out if you're interested in micronational economics and learning how someone realistically makes something like this work. And I'm sure that's something that Mr. Evans can relate to in some sense, doing a grassroots movement. We have talked about an individual business, some way that small businesses, small grassroots movements, small micronations can actually make money and do something that provides long-term consistency for them and stability. And I've been hyping up something that we are going to be doing ourselves, so I definitely want to show that off to you all. And I was saving it for our third and final video of that series, but I do want to show it off just a little right now. We will have a more in-depth video and discussion of that in our third episode of um, the economic series, and then we'll probably do an individual episode on this particular subject in itself and how this new industry in Aeternia and this new business in Aeternia is going to work for us. But for the time being, I would like to introduce you to the newest member of the Aeternian family. It is not a human member of the Aeternian family, but it is something that is going to help us out a lot. This is Gary the snail. Now, he looks, excuse my room, he looks like a fairly ordinary snail, but he's not. He's actually quite large, as you can see, quite a large shell, and as well, comparable to most snails, because of how large he is quite quick. He's able to pull himself along at about 200 or 300 times not 200 or 300 times, 200 or 300% the speed other snails are able to move, which isn't extremely fast, as snails are very slow creatures, but is still very interesting for what he can do. The reason he's so large and the reason he has such ability to do these things is for a couple reasons. If I can go ahead and move him. He has on him these two little feelers right here that look like a mustache, actually. If I can hold him up, if he'll let me play with him for a second. He has these two long little mustachy-like feelers. And what those are chemical sensors. They track chemicals left by other snails and slugs, which are their prey. This is the rosy wolf snail, and he is a carnivore. I keep saying he, which actually isn't scientifically accurate, but just because I named it Gary, I figured that that would be a fitting pronoun, so, or a fitting term to call it. Snails are most normally hermaphrodites, so if I get Gary a life partner here, where they can have babies, Gary may have his/her own babies that he will become, or is a hermaphrodite, and therefore can change his sex at will. So whether he is the mommy or the daddy is to be decided. But I'm hoping to breed Gary, and the reason for this is you may think, well, snails aren't extremely valuable on their own, and you're absolutely right. But the reason for this snail being so valuable is that it is very rare. These snails in particular are actually native to North Florida and South Florida, so fairly near to where we are, these snails are native, and therefore you can find them relatively easily versus somewhere else in the country or the world. But these are a species that's very rare because they are carnivorous snails, meaning that farmers and gardeners alike really love them because they eat other snail and slug species. So if you want to keep snails and slugs out of your garden, you just have some of these guys. Now, how does that turn into a business for us? Well, if I can breed these, I can sell them to farmers, gardeners, people who are interested in agriculture in general, and will hopefully be able to reproduce them in their garden. They want to, without having the harvest tainted in a certain sense by what they have to do to keep away pests. So these guys are their own natural little hunters. They're very cool, and even if people wanted to keep them as pets, they are very interesting. The only difficulty is if someone were to decide to keep them as pets, They do require a little bit of special care, and most importantly, you should not release them back into the wild because in places that they are not native, they are known to kill off lots of native snail and slug species because they are carnivorous and because they do eat a lot. This guy can probably eat 1 to 2 to 3 snails a day. So they can be quite big, they can be quite scary, and they are a snail and garden pest's worst nightmare. So Gary the snail is in it to win it, and he will hopefully be the start of a new industry in the empire, one that will hopefully offspring many, many industries to come. So, with that and saying goodbye to Gary, sorry about the weird camera angle. I'm having to readjust from that little aside there. Excuse me. Now that we have seen Gary and seen a little bit about our starting industry, that is just about all I have for you. I have one more thing actually that I forgot to mention, but let's look down at my little cheat sheet here. Oh, camera's going all over the place. Sorry about that. I just looked down at my little cheat sheet to remind me of what I want to talk about, and there was one thing that I just about left out for you all. If I can get this camera to stay up straight. There we go. The one thing that I left out for you all is, we have new scientific advancements as well. I know quite a few of you also got really excited for the 1 or 2 science videos that we did, and I know that sort of died off, so I'm sorry about that. If you've become a fan of the channel for the science, just know there is plenty more to come, and not only that, it is ramping up. As of recently, part of the reason for my essentially week-long break from the channel has been, because we have been going through a bit of a change scientifically. I went to pick up a really interesting new piece of equipment for our scientific use, and these are extremely powerful, quite rare, and extremely expensive. This is probably going to increase our over total scientific worth in the thousands of dollars. These are extremely nice pieces of equipment, and I am excited to have them in our possession. We're going to be able to do a lot of cool experiments with them and are going to be able to just blow away the YouTube community with some of this stuff. I know it's a little bit hyped up. I know there are a lot of science YouTubers out there, but I think this will be one that is exciting. So, I don't reveal the spoiler yet. I'd like to do a video on it at some point. It might take a while for me to actually get it in working order to make sure that it can all be presentable on the channel and that we can do an unveiling and an execution and a demo of it all at once. But that will have to come for a separate video. I thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate your interest in everything that we're doing, and stay tuned for a lot more. Stay tuned for the rest of that economic series. Stay tuned for the interview with Marcus Ruiz Evans, the leader of the Yes California movement, otherwise known as Calexit. And be sure to check out our newest videos that'll be coming out on Monsieur and Mrs. Gary, and our newest scientific breakthrough with technology. Our newest acquired scientific achievement and breakthrough and piece of equipment that will launch us further toward our goals. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you found this interesting. If you have, please share it with everybody that you know and make them a part of the empire and grow our family. I appreciate you watching. I know Monsieur Gary does. And I will see you next time for our interview with Marcus Ruiz Evans. See ya. If I can leave live.